Today, I'm ranking every single live event in Fortnite history from the very worst one to the very best. We've had 20 live events so far, and at number 20, the very worst event we've ever had in Fortnite has to be the Fracture event. You see, this was a chapter ending event, so people had extremely high expectations, especially after the previous two chapters. But taking us from chapter 3 to chapter 4 was the worst event ever. It started off as a cinematic where the main bad guy they were building up in chapter 3 just instantly got one shot and died, and the entire Fortnite island and map just exploded randomly. And then we spawned in some random location and we were doing quests for about 45 minutes rebuilding the map. It felt like a boring UEFN map. I'm not sure what Epic was trying there, but let me tell you this, they are never trying that again. At number 19, we have Live at Risky. This was a Star Wars event. And this one was also pretty disappointing because it really felt like just an advertisement for Star Wars. We expected a crazy collab event with cinematics and maybe Star Wars characters showing up, but all we got was like a video on a screen and it was an ad for the new Star Wars movie. And there were some ships flying around, which were pretty cool. It was basically just a TED talk from J.J. Abrams. The only thing that made it special was at the very end, some chests spawned in that had lightsabers in them, and lightsabers ended up getting added to the game at that moment. But besides that, it wasn't very memorable and it was just a bad event. And it was even worse if you weren't a Star Wars fan because you just really did not care. At number 18, we have the Ice Storm event. This one happened in chapter 1, season 7. Visually, this event was very cool, but it was also extremely short and it can't be that high on this list as a result of that. The Ice King showed up and he turned the entire map into snow, which was very cool. But nowadays, this would be considered a mini event, and back then this was a main event for Fortnite. I think for some people it was nostalgia that made this event very cool, and it was one of the early events considering it being in chapter 1. But if this event was hyped up and brought in today's Fortnite, a lot of people would be disappointed. And this one might be controversial, but at number 17, I have Remix the Prelude. This was the live concert event that happened before chapter 2 Remix, and it was a live concert with Snoop Dogg and Ice Spice, and it happened in New York City, and they basically displayed the stream to the fans who were watching on Fortnite. Now here's the thing, I actually think this event was very cool. I actually think the technical aspect of doing a live stream to 10 million plus people is pretty insane, and I guarantee you it was very cool to be there in New York actually attending in person. The issue with this event was the communication. I talked about this on my main channel. A lot of people expected this event to be like the Travis Scott event or the Juice WRLD event that we just got, so everybody went in there with different expectations, and if we had known that it was going to be some sort of live concert feed ahead of time, probably appreciated this event more, because I know it was probably very hard to pull off. And I personally would have this higher on this list, but I'm also going based off of community feedback when I'm creating this list, and a lot of the community wasn't very happy. Even though this was kind of cool, Epic needs to communicate a little bit more clear, and they have been actually since this event happened. So let's move on from the bad events to events that were just mid. Nothing too special. At number 16, we have the Big Bang event. So this one was very unique because it introduced new gameplay mechanics, but it was also a very big advertisement for Fortnite's new modes, including Fortnite Lego and Rocket Racing and Festival. Now, on the first watch, it was very cool, but this event isn't something that you go back and watch and have very fond memories of, because if you don't really care about those modes, it's pretty forgettable. For me, the highlight of this event was the Eminem concert, and a lot of people thought Eminem was going to get a full set and do a full-on performance, but he only got a few songs, and that part was very short, but it was very cool. I think the missing component for this was that this event didn't really tie into the story. It really was an advertisement for the new mode, and some players felt that, and I guess they were pulled out of the immersion of the live event. But at the end of the day, even a mid event for Fortnite is better than most events other games ever have. At number 15, we have the Zero Crisis finale event. So this one is kind of unique. It happened at the beginning of Chapter 2, Season 6, and this was Fortnite's first and last ever solo event. Basically, when you launched your game once Season 6 was live, you were queued into this solo live event where you're running around and you're closing these portals, and Jonesy ends up running to the Foundation. Now, the thing about this event is if you were a story lover, it was extremely cool. We got to see the Foundation. We learned a lot about the Fortnite storyline, but if you didn't know what was going on with the storyline, the event was a little bit short and also kind of just forgettable. And I did like that Epic was trying something new with a solo event, but they haven't done it since, so I'm assuming the players weren't too fond of it. And honestly, that's really all I have for mid events. The rest of the events on this list are actually all good or great. So at number 14, we have the Unvaulting, and I'm actually really excited to relive this event again in Fortnite OG. There was a ton of fun quests leading up to this event, and there was a hole that opened up in Loot Lake, and we got to decide which weapon or item we wanted to unvault. We had a few options. We had drum gun, bouncer, the mythic sword, planes, and of course the defaults all voted for the drum gun for some reason. I really hope we don't make that mistake again. Some people forgot, but they also destroyed Tilted and Retail Row during this live event for some reason, and the visuals they had of the volcano destroying them was really cool and pretty memorable. And now at number 13, we have Operation Skyfire. This was in Chapter 2, Season 7. It was really cool being guided into the huge alien mothership. The story tied in extremely well and was very relevant to what was happening during the season. And then we had the big betrayal at the end with Sloan. And the closing scene from a visual perspective looked absolutely insane. At number 12, we have our first ever concert and one of our first events ever, the Marshmallow Concert. Now, this might be controversial being a little bit lower on the list since it was our very first concert in Fortnite. And at the time, it was extremely sick and a lot of people had a fantastic time. But since then, we've had concerts like Ariana Grande and Travis Scott and the Juice WRLD and Eminem concerts. So it kind of falls down and doesn't really stand up to the test of time considering what they've done after. It was still a very cool concert and it happened at an iconic location, Pleasant Park. So it was very memorable. At number 11, we have the Butterfly event. Now, this was one of the first live events Fortnite ever had, but it was also extremely memorable. If you actually attended the live event and you were an OG, it happened at a POI called Leaky Lake. Now, this one would be higher on this list if there was more going on, but there wasn't too much interaction in this event. We went into the lake, got transported like into this 0 point area. There was a rift butterfly that came up and we ended up touching it and like the whole screen went white. It was very special. Like if you're an OG and you attended, it really made you realize like, dang, this Fortnite game is different. And the storyline, which we actually had a storyline at the time, was starting to build up. Like they were starting to put the early building blocks of the storyline in place about the 0 point. So this was definitely a crazy event for its time. At number 10, we have the Rift Tour, the Ariana Grande concert. This one gets a little bit of hate, but looking back, it was a very good concert. The only issue was that some people just didn't like Ariana Grande, or they were comparing it directly to the Travis Scott concert, which obviously, in my opinion, was better. It was still a fantastic concert, had amazing visuals and special effects, and the song choices were also fantastic. But if you're not a fan of Ariana Grande and you're comparing it directly to the Travis Scott concert, you might not think it's too great. At number 9, we have the Collision. This one's actually very unique. There was a lot of interactive gameplay throughout this event. This happened in Chapter 3, Season 2, and it was the only live event in Chapter 3 because we're not going to count Fracture. You actually got to pilot the mech and shoot at things going around, and there was this huge moment where Peely came in to save the day when we were low on shield, which was very special and very memorable, and it was probably one of the coolest gameplay live events we've ever had. At number 8, we have the Device. This was a Chapter 2 live event where Midas built a device to try to control the storm. Now, the cool thing about this live event is we actually got transported into the office where Jonesy was working, and we actually got to see a lot of behind the scenes about the storyline of Fortnite, which was a huge day for Fortnite storyline, enthusiasts. On top of that, there was a visual in this live event that was so amazing. After we went out of that flashback and we saw the entire storm was just a huge tsunami of water with sharks and cars like in the water. That was such a cool and scary visual. And for like the next few days, the storm was actually just water, like a huge flood coming in, which brought us into Chapter 2, Season 3, where the map was flooded. It was a very cool tie-in to like the whole theme of what was going on in that chapter, and it was extremely memorable. At number 7, we have the Galactus event. So this one is definitely my controversial take because a lot of people have this in their top 3. This was also Fortnite's most popular event ever with 16 million players in attendance. Our most recent one with Juice WRLD got 14 million. This one gets remembered very, very fondly, but looking back, like if you actually watch the event back, it was good. It was fantastic, but not enough to put it in number 1 or number 2 like a lot of people do. This happened in Chapter 2, Season 4, and there wasn't a lot of back and forth with us fighting Galactus. And a lot of people felt a little bit underwhelmed by how quickly we were able to defeat Galactus. And, you know, this guy was being built up as this huge, big, bad villain for the entire season. And then we just kind of one-shot him. And that always like didn't really land too well with me. It was a fantastic event, but after rewatching it, I don't have it in my top 3. At number 6, we have the Rocket Live event. This was our very first live event in Fortnite history, but it really showed us Fortnite's true potential. Visually, this wasn't very crazy, but it was instantly a classic. First of all, there was no safety guards. Like, you could just die in this event or get sniped in the face by another player, and you would have to spectate the live event from someone else's POV. Someone even broke the solo world record during this live event by chopping out 40 people who were watching the live event. So instantly, this one has some very deep lore and gives off some very OG vibes. It shows us how far the game has come, and for its time, and even until now, it is one of the greatest and most memorable and talked about live events in Fortnite history. And for number 5, we have the End Chapter 2. And this was one of the coolest events ever from a visual perspective and a story perspective. The only reason I don't have it in my top 3 is because Epic leaked the entire event the day before. If we did not know that the island was going to flip at the end of this event, that scene would have hit way harder, and it was really cool. We were fighting a bunch of monsters. The Rock got revealed as the Foundation, which was one of the most memorable events and the biggest, you know, reaction we've ever got in a Fortnite event from anybody. There was a lot of cool moments, a lot of storyline elements, big reveals, big surprises, and then it just ends with the map flipping, sending us into Chapter 3. Like, this was amazing. I really wish this event did not leak the way it did, because it could easily be a top 3 if it didn't. At number 4, we have the Black Hole event. Now, this one was short and sweet. The music that they had during this live event was absolutely insane. I don't know what they were cooking up in the studio, but the end finale music for Chapter 1, I still listen to it to this day, and it actually gives me chills. On top of that, the Black Hole was one of the most talked about gaming moments in Fortnite history, and I do count the Black Hole as a part of this event. Of course, Fortnite went down for like 2.5 days. I had 100,000 live viewers watching me, waiting for Fortnite to go back up. People were freaking out. There was a bunch of TikToks and shorts being posted about like what's going on. And it had such a cultural and just mainstream impact. They were covering this on the news, guys. Like, they were literally talking about this on the news. So for me, it has to be in my top 4. At number 3, we have the Juice WRLD concert. Yes, a top 3 event just happened, in my opinion. Snoop Dogg's entrance was iconic. It was amazing. It sounded great. They picked fantastic songs for each person's set. Eminem's part was probably my favorite part. Him showing up and fighting himself as the mech. The comic scene panels coming in and out. All the little details were just so fantastic. Ice Spice's part was okay. I'm not gonna lie. It was probably the weakest part of the event, but they low-key, they didn't put as much of the visuals and effects for her. The only thing that would have made this event crazier is if Travis Scott somehow showed up, and he did like show up for part of Ice Spice's song, but like his actual Fortnite character should have showed up, and that would have been crazy. And then Juice WRLD's part was like so emotional and beautiful, and it was like fantastic tribute for a very, very talented artist who passed away way too soon. This was a great event. They broke records. It was the most watched concert in Fortnite history. This could end up being a number 1 or 2 event of all time as time goes on. We just have to wait and see how it develops in time, but we have to pay respects for some other classics that are at number 2 and number 1. At number 2, we have Mech versus Monster. This is a very great event. The lead up of the mech being built throughout the season, the monster in Polar Peak as the ice was melting. He ended up being in the ocean. We knew it was going to be crazy. The fight starts. There's back and forth. You don't know who's going to win. There's a ton of twists. Until today, people still talk about that final slow motion attack with the sword to finish off the monster, and then the one-handed floss to really make it a Fortnite moment. It was just a perfect live event, and this happened back in 2019, 5 years ago, and to this day it lives up to the test of time. But of course, At number 1, we have one of the most popular live events in Fortnite history, the Travis Scott concert. Everything in this event was an absolute masterpiece. The song choices, the visuals, the entire map getting involved, it still holds up to this day. And this event is 5 years old. So imagine what they could have done with today's technology. I had this event slightly lower on a tier list I did back in the day, but this one has lived the test of time and has honestly climbed up the list for me to be number 1. Let me know what you guys think about this list in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.